Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm Ricky Camilleri. You have seen our next guest in projects like Django Unchained, Vinyl on HBO, and you can currently see him in Netflix's groundbreaking sci-fi show, Altered Carbon. Let's take a look.
Shouldn't have gone after my daughter.
I was just trying to find out what happened to her. I mean, you left a few things out.
You don't care about her.
I never said I did. Heads up.
You can't possibly think I'm that stupid.
You shouldn't have come back.
Everybody, please welcome Ato Essandoh.
Hey. Thank you.
Hey, man.
Thank you. How you doing?
Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You know, normally when we have the guests on, we have them in the poster as well here, but I bet you're probably happy that that's not you in the poster.
Yeah, because that does not look
kind of
comfortable, and I don't like slime.
And how much would you really want to be sitting next to your naked body in a slimy bag while you're
that'd
trying
be
to
a
talk about
little
yourself?
creepy, and especially if my mom is watching or something like that, just creepy. Because it looks like a womb, and actually that would just probably bring my mom back to back in the day when she had me.
Some baby boy style.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing,
She
right?
said I came out really fast, but I was like a long baby, so. So anytime she says that, I just imagine like the doctors just, damn, that's like there's more baby here. Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's sort of like,
Ta-da!
Anyway,
Yes.
Talk to me about Altered Carbon and getting involved in the show, because as I told you backstage, I interviewed Joel Kinnaman about the show, and my interview is essentially about Altered Carbon go like this.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I have no idea. I'm serious. No. I'm a big sci-fi geek, and so when I got the role, it's like a dream come true for me. And this is like pure sci-fi, cyberpunk kind of stuff. So really dense with all the sci-fi talk and all that stuff. So we had to really learn what we were talking about. But essentially, what Altered Carbon is a future in humanity where we've got the ability to put your essence into any body that you want.
The wealthy have that ability.
The wealthy have that. Well, everybody has the ability, but the wealthy can choose whatever body they want. They can even clone themselves. People like you and me, the grounders, as they're called on the television show, we basically have the option of whatever body's available. So if it's a 70-year-old man, that's who you're going to be. If it's a 4-year-old child, that's who you're going to be, if that's the body that's available.
Right, so I could just get stuck in someone that's probably going to die in another 10 years, and it's not really extending my life at all.
And that's just too bad. That's just too bad, you know? So you want to be rich in this world.
And your character, his daughter is playing a major part in the mystery that Joel is trying to figure out.
Yes.
It's such a complex show, because it really is. It's a mysterious world with a mystery wrapped up inside of it as well.
Right.
So everything is like a clue that you have to sort of pick up on.
Yeah, it's a mix of sci-fi, and it's almost like a film noir detective procedural almost. So they've packed a lot of that stuff in there, and even for me, somebody who's been in the show, I have to watch the show over and over to just remember what's going on, and that's not a bad thing. I think that's the thing about sci-fi that makes it durable, is like people watch it over and over again, such that the fans then become way more knowledgeable than the people who actually created the show.
What's your favorite sci-fi movie?
I'm a Star Wars dude.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a Star Wars dude.
That's not technically hard sci-fi.
Yeah, but that is like the legend. I still remember seeing it. I still remember when we figured out who Luke's father was. Like, my brothers and I, we could at one point go through every single one of the original movies from line to line to line, everybody's line all the way through the movie. That's how crazy we were.
Was Star Wars the movie that made you want to act? Like, what made you want to start acting?
Oh, well, I was dared. I went to school as a chemical engineer. I studied chemical engineer at Cornell, and I had a girl.
I love
like
stories
you do.
like this.
Yeah,
I really do, because
yeah.
they're actually very inspiring. They're this kind of thing of like, you don't have to be the thing that you thought you were the whole time. You know?
Yeah. You know, I have West African parents. My parents are from Ghana, and we have that sort of stereotypical thing where like you have to be a doctor, and that's all you can be. Okay.
And that is good advice.
Yeah, that's good advice because they want you to make money and then have kids and buy a house. They don't want you to mess around like poor, right? So when I graduated Cornell, well, just to get back to it, my girlfriend at the time, she dared me to do a play. And I did the play, and it was the first time I was on stage, and it was like, oh, this is what acting is? You know, I never thought of it as a career or anything you could do. So
Can I ask, was it a dare because you were already kind of a performer in some way? And she was like, she knew you a little bit better than you knew yourself.
That's
and she was
what
like,
I love about
She's like,
that,
will you
yeah.
just get on stage and just like leave me alone,
That's
please?
kind of what happened. Yeah, what I love about any kind of friendship or relationships is that people know you in ways better than you know yourself. And she could see it. It wasn't like, I see that you're going to become an actor. Right? She was like, you know you like messing around. Just go up there and do it. It'll be fun. And I was like, nah. She's like, you're going to do it. And I was like, okay, baby. And when I did it, it was like, I'll never forget the electricity going through me because I had no idea what being on stage was like. I had no idea. And so the actress that was with me sort of coached me through everything. But the first time I felt what I would say the audience breathing with you, you're sitting up there telling a story, and you can like even now, people are listening to me. And I guess that's the sort of actor's ego where you go, oh my God, they are listening to the story I'm telling, and there's a skill set behind it. And if I take a pause, they're waiting for what I'm gonna say next. And it's a skill that you build in storytelling that I just fell in love with instantly. So when I got back to New York City, I started taking classes and then just totally fell in love with it, broke my parents' hearts, but they've been really awesome ever since.
How long did it take them for them to get awesome about it?
Amazingly quickly, because they were like, oh, he looks like Sidney Poitier, so I think he'll be okay. And I'm like, all right, that's your standard, that's cool, you know, but my parents were really cool. I mean, I did a show a little while ago and I brought my mom on set, and it's the first time she's been on a huge set and all that stuff, and she takes me aside, and this is after I've been acting for about 15 years, and she takes me aside and she goes, you have no idea how proud your dad and I are of you. And we've been so scared, but we didn't want to get in your way. We just wanted to be quiet and as supporting as we could, but we are so proud of you. And I'm
Those
almost
are some good parents.
Yeah, I owe them everything because they never said no. They never sort of did anything negative. They just were always really supportive. I just didn't realize how scared they were because they were like, he might be poor.
Well, that's one of those wonderful things with parents when you realize, oh, you knew what you were doing, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, I always thought you weren't supportive or you were this or you were that, but you were
Right.
actually just hanging back to see when you needed to jump in.
Absolutely.
Which is like the best kind of parent.
Absolutely. And then I got to pay off my school loans with acting proceeds.
Amazing.
That bugged me out because I sat my dad down one day and I was like, hey, Pop, school loans all paid off? He's like, okay, son. I was like, no, did you just hear what I just said? I paid my chemical engineering school loans off with acting proceeds. And he was like, bruh. I was like, yeah. He shook my hand and he's like, you've become a man now. It was like, great.
And when you got to New York, you started like a theater group, right? You have a theater group called the Defiant Ones?
Yes, I started the Defiant Ones with my buddy Joshua James. He's a great screenwriter now. And that was back in the day when I was just struggling I was like, well, if nobody's gonna cast me, I'll just write plays and I'll cast myself. And that led me to be in the Manhattan Theater Source, which was a community theater downtown. And that was like my stomping ground. I just learned what acting was. I was also directing. I was also writing and all that kind of stuff. So I really got inured into the business in a way that I think is priceless.
Are you still writing?
Haven't in a long time, but it's about time for me to start. I've just been
that-
busy, luckily.
You got that thing that's coming. It's like, oh, I gotta
Yeah,
write.
yeah. I want to. Well, I don't want to give it away, but I want to do something that's based in Ghana, based on my family and so forth, because we have a large family. There's a lot of dynamics that I would love to sort of talk about and speak to. So, and I think it'd be some compelling television. So that's something that I want to try.
What was the first role that you got on screen?
Oh, that was a third watch.
Amazing.
It
Third
was
watch.
amazing. It was third watch. I was a bike messenger that got hit by a car, and my lines were like right.
Sounds like third watch.
Yeah, it sounds like third watch, right? And I was so happy because again, it was the first time I was on television. I was shooting downtown with Bobby Cannavale, who I didn't know who he was, but I was like, that guy's a great actor. And we went through the scene, and then being on television. I think one thing that struck me, and this is not necessarily an ego thing, but to see my name, Ato Essandoh, in credits, that did something to me because I've never seen a Ghanaian name in credits before, or at least I'm sure there are. There's like Yaphet Kotto, people like that, but it was like my name, and then when my parents and my family saw that, it made it mean something in a way that I think was very meaningful.
Yaphet Kotto, one of the most underrated actors of all time.
He's one of my favorites ever.
Blue Collar is just like such
Yes.
an amazing film. And
Yeah.
Yaphet Kotto deserves so much more kind of like legendary love
Yes.
than I think a lot of
I'm
actors.
glad you are a Yaphet Kotto man.
I mean, I'm a
That man
big
is my
Blue Collar
dude.
fan. Like
Oh,
that movie
very
is just
good.
like
Oh, okay. Now we boys now. Okay, good. All right. Not bad. I'm impressed.
if anybody has never seen Blue Collar with
Yeah.
Richard Pryor and Harvey Keitel and
Yeah.
Yaphet Kotto, it is a mind-blowing 70s
Absolutely
film.
fantastic,
with just-
yeah.
It's all about performance. It's
Yes.
just these great
Yes.
three guys who apparently hated each other on set.
Oh, really? I didn't
yeah.
hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, I could see that.
Harvey
That's a
and
lot
Pryor
of
really hated
personalities.
each other,
Yeah.
apparently.
That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot. And
Pryor was probably really difficult for like
For
a
some-
Stella Adler actor to maybe deal with. you
yeah,
know,
because he's just going up, and you're like, I'm not prepared for this.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a process here. Can we not just riff the whole time?
There are lines that have been written, and he's just not saying any of them. So yeah.
I referenced Django when
Yeah.
I opened to talk to you. What was that moment like when you got cast in that film?
Oh, that was one of those. I could not believe it because Tarantino is one of the reasons I became an actor. Again, is watching Sam Jackson in Pulp Fiction, and again, that was another one of those moments where I was like, oh, because I'm an engineer, so I don't see acting as a career. It's just like, oh, those people are up there just kind of messing around. But then I was like, oh, there's a skill set to it, and Sam Jackson was one of them. So when I got
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that's
Yeah.
so interesting that you see that with him because I think to me he's one of the most natural
Absolutely,
It
yeah.
almost just feels like it's his personality.
Right,
you know?
right. But I guess there's something in his personality can be molded into so many different things that I just found it fascinating. I just found that he could wear that Jerry curl and still be scary. You can't be in a Jerry curl and be scary. But Sam Jackson was scary, do you know what I mean? And you took him serious. And so that's the thing that I again was struck by, like, how do you create a character? So when I got Django, I mean, I'm sitting there with Tarantino, and it was funny because I did the callback, right? I go up there and I'm reading the scene, and I'm the guy who gets eaten by the dogs, if you didn't know. And it's a really emotional scene and all that stuff. And I go through it a couple of times, and Tarantino will say, hey, great, so when you go down, we're going to be shooting down in New Orleans. It's going to be great. You're going to have to be on the whole time. It's going to be a lot of tears. It's going to take maybe a week to shoot the film. And I'm in my head going, is he offering me the role? And so I'm trying to play it cool. I'm like, yeah, Quentin, if you hire me, I'll bring my game, right? And he's like, yeah. So when you're down there, probably shooting in a couple of months, and blah blah blah. Okay, great. And I was like, yeah. So if you hire me, I'll because I'm not processing that the man is giving me the role. So I just left, and the casting director looks at me. She's like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I don't know. She goes, you got the part. And I'm like, really? And I start crying, and I start hugging everybody, and then they're like, okay, now calm down. But
Don't make him regret it.
Don't make him regret it. Exactly. But that was a fantastic experience because I had to do the stunts, right? So they had actual real dogs, right? And I was trying to figure out how they were going to do it. And basically, they have pads on each arm that the dog sort of bites on, and they have all this protection, right? but the dog is taught to bite knee pads. So if you give the dog a knee pad, it's just gonna go, ah, right? So if it feels a knee pad where it's biting, then it thinks it's playing, right? So I did it a couple times because I love dogs, and they're like, oh, he's great. He's really comfortable with it, right? And so the trainers and the dogs are like military trained dogs. Like if you say sit, that dog sits and doesn't do anything until you tell it to do something else. So I felt safe, but they're pretty big dogs, right? And so the trainers were like, okay, we're gonna have to come up with a safe word, only because you're gonna be screaming a whole bunch of stuff and we're not gonna be able to tell if something goes wrong. And I was like, well, what could go wrong? And they said, well, if you're struggling and the dog has to release and then goes back down, if he bites somewhere else, you are screwed. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Okay, cool, right? And so there's only a pad here, and a pad here, and everything else, there's no pads, right? So we're shooting, Quentin shoots all angles, right? So we're going through it a couple of times. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and I said, okay, the safe word's gonna be pickle, all right? And so I remember this in slow motion. So the dog on my shoulder here, we're struggling, I went like that. And I'm like, oh, Lord, and I looked, and the dog started to come back, and so I started to go, pickle, pickle, pickle. But the dog clamped back on and got exactly where he was supposed to be, so I was safe. So I kept going with the scene. I was like, okay, never mind. I was like, Lord Jesus, right? And so at the end, like, Quentin calls cut, and the stunt people walk up, and they're like, did you call pickle? And I was like, yeah. Y'all didn't hear? Why'd y'all stop, right? I called, but you know, the dog clamped back on, and I was cool. And so all these stuntmen got all that stunt respect because I played it cool, right? And so they were like, oh, you the man now. I was like, yeah, you know, next time you have me jumping out of a helicopter on fire, I can do that right now. I can't do that. But it gave me my street cred ego, so that was cool.
And who was in that scene with you? I mean, that scene that's everybody.
Yeah,
Jamie,
that was Leo,
Leo,
Jamie, everybody.
Not Sam though. He's back at the house, if I remember correctly.
No, Sam was in that scene
Oh, he's
too.
in that
yeah,
scene.
that's the pivotal scene where Sam, you know, the awful thing that happens to my character. That's where Sam is. He makes the. Oh, I'm sorry, not Sam Jackson. I'm thinking Jamie. Sorry. Yes. Sam is back at the house.
Because that's like
house
on the way to
Negroing.
the house. They stop.
Yes.
And
That's
like,
before you
He tried
meet.
to run, right?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's crazy that I remember that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the only person I didn't get to meet. I didn't get to.
You didn't get to meet him.
Oh man. Yeah. But
Did you want to ask, or were you just like,
I wanted to ask, but I met him at the premiere.
Oh, okay.
So he came up to me, and Sam Jackson is one of, like, it's Sam and Denzel and, like, Sydney. Those are my, like, oh my gosh, right? And so he comes up to me, and it sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm not, because it just almost broke my heart. It was amazing, right? He comes up to me, he's like, hey, man. And I did this show called Copper on BBC America a little while ago, and he was like, Copper.
Yes.
And I was like, what? And he was like, yo, you're the bad. Oh, I loved you in Copper. And I was like, you watched that? And he was like, yeah. And then he pulls out his phone and takes a selfie with me. I was like, I was ready to do that. Why am I on your phone, Sam?
I love Samuel
Sam Jackson,
He's
man.
such an odd bird, but in the best way
that,
possible.
Ooh, Sam Jackson, like that's, yeah.
He has nothing but surprises all the time.
Yeah. He's in everything, and he's one of those actors that's just always good no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if the movie might not be good, you know Sam Jackson's gonna be good. So that's what I love about him.
And you are in an upcoming X-Men film too, right?
Yes.
Who are you playing in that?
That's all I can say about it.
Oh, that's all.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
Oh.
I signed so many NDAs on that one that yeah.
Is it shot? Have you guys shot?
I've shot. Yeah, I shot it in Montreal a couple of months ago now. Yeah, this last year. So they're in post, and it's gonna be a humdinger.
Is it exciting?
Yeah, it's exciting because I'm a big comic book nerd, and it's the Dark Phoenix saga of X-Men. I can say that, and I remember being like a 16-year-old kid reading that, and so to be a part of that is kind of amazing. And I think they're really they're gonna do an incredible job on this one.
So you're a big comics nerd, and you're in this sci-fi show.
Yeah.
But you're also a writer as well, and you wrote.
Right.
I know you wrote a play a while
Right.
back called Black Thang,
Uh-huh.
right? When you sit down to write, what come out of you? Do you recognize it as the influences on you when you were a kid, or is it something completely different?
It's something. It's just more like situational. I guess the weird thing that's in the things that I've written, it's almost like voices are in my head, and I'm just taking dictation. And so I love banter. I love relationships. I especially love romantic relationships. So I can write a lot about that, and a lot of my ex-girlfriends can see themselves and stuff. That's just. I'm sorry, baby. That's just what's gonna happen. But I just love the dynamic of love, and I love the misunderstandings that cause other things that could be fixed in the moment, but just because we're human, we don't see them until it's too late. And so that's what I love to write about. Yeah.
Let's get some questions from our audience. Who has a
Yeah.
question? Right here.
Hi.
Hey.
So you went to Cornell, which is a pretty prestigious school for engineering,
Sure.
but maybe not for acting. So,
Right.
But did you, were you really good, or did you enjoy engineering while you were studying it, and did you take any acting classes while you were there somewhere else, or?
I didn't
Cornell?
take any acting classes, but I really loved engineering. I love math and science. But the thing about Cornell it was that I was around the smartest people in the world, and for what it felt like everybody knew what they were doing. And I felt like I was doing chemical engineering because that's what I was supposed to do, but I wanted to figure out what was natural for me. I loved math and science, but like I felt like I had to work really hard, and I didn't know what it was that I naturally did until I found acting. And then it was like, I belong here. For some weird reason, it feels really good. And that's why I pursued it, because I was like, well, I want to find the thing that makes me tick.
And the weird thing, when you find the thing that makes you tick and find the thing that makes you feel comfortable, that doesn't mean that you're not challenging yourself or finding
Yes.
challenges. You're actually more comfortable finding challenges because you
Right.
know exactly how to, not how to maneuver them, but when a challenge comes up in something that you're not comfortable in, you're like, fuck, I gotta.
Yeah.
Challenge comes up in something that you're comfortable in, you're like, oh, let's do this. Let's work it out. You know,
Yes.
let's find this out.
Yeah. There's something really magical about it too, because when I found it, it was natural, and I'm just piggybacking on what you said.
Yeah, it wasn't a question. It was giving you to piggyback.
Sure, yeah. But there was a huge challenge because suddenly, I'm 22, 23. It's kind of late for me to be figuring out what I want to do as an actor. All the people I came up through in theater when I started doing theater had been doing it for a long time, and I didn't know all the the American canon of plays and all the Shakespeare plays like they did. So there was a lot of catching up that I had to do to just get a sort of a knowledge base of what I was doing. And so I think that worked in my favor because it was all new for me. Everything was new. Sitting in an acting class after doing a whole bunch of sitting in a lab and figuring out what the hell was going on with the oxygen dimethyl hexyl whatever, and suddenly I'm sitting there trying to figure out why this character says this and does this at that time. And it brought back everything that I have been always interested in, which is why people are the way they are. And the other thing about it, the acting is it's what am I doing under the situation? How would I act if this was my situation? It's not me being somebody else. It's me figuring out, oh, well, if this was my situation, how would I react? And then realizing that, oh, we're all the same. It's just you switch this parameter here, or you switch that parameter there, and this is how you're reacting under those circumstances.
What would be going on with me to make me react this way? Because I normally wouldn't do that, but
Exactly.
what would it take?
Exactly.
Next question?
Yeah.
Right here.
Hi. Did you picture this level of success when you first started, and how long did that high of you getting the first role, how long did that last for before you started jumping on all the other projects?
Oh, I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I've been kicking around for 15 years. So I always say it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So I just remember, I think when I got that show that I mentioned before, Copper, that's when I was like, oh, I can do this, right? I'm a series regular in this show, and I've been working for a long time, and it seems like people continue to hire me, so I can be a little comfortable here. I just remember watching all the actors that I knew come up, and I realized, speaking of Sam Jackson, that guy has been kicking around for a long time.
Like 40 when he got Pulp Fiction, and maybe even older than that.
Yeah.
And that was his kind of, I guess his break was Jungle Fever.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But even
Small
that was like 35, 38 years old.
Absolutely, absolutely. When I did the Bourne movie and I was talking with Tommy Lee Jones, and Tommy Lee Jones, we took a liking to each other, and he
Not easy to
which is
do
not
with
easy.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy, he's cantankerous, but he's a cool dude. And he was like, a long time ago I used to do a soap opera. And I was like, yeah. And then he named some soap opera. And he's like, yeah, I played a doctor. I was about 20 years old. And I was like, yeah, okay, Tommy. He's like, and there's a little African-American boy who was one of my patients in the thing, and he was a good actor. And I was like, cool, Tommy. He was like, and you know who that boy was? And I was like, who? Lawrence Fishburne. I was like, Lawrence Fishburne at 5 years old. And then the next time is Lawrence Fishburne at like 15 years old in Apocalypse Now. Right?
And then he's in Death Wish 3 a few years later.
Yeah.
And then he's in A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 as
Right.
well as the person in the hospital. Like, he's
Exactly.
the nurse in the hospital.
And then he pops when he's probably What's Love Got to Do with It when he played Ike Turner, right?
Boys in the Hood.
Boys in the Hood.
90,
yeah,
91.
Sorry.
He might have had a role or two before that was
Sure.
like leading to Boys in the Hood.
Right.
But Boys in the Hood was the one that really like I think
Exactly.
took him over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're right.
And then of course Ike Turner. Yeah.
And then Ike
he
Turner,
got
and then The
nominated for
Matrix,
that.
right? Yeah. And my point is, that's a long time.
To get on part of acting for most actors, it's getting on the radar of the
Right.
producers and the people who are making this stuff, so
Right.
that you just keep getting passed along, and then
Right.
every now and then something pops,
Yeah.
and you either get to maintain being a working actor,
Yes.
which is great, or you become a big star, or something doesn't pop. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's definitely no going back to chemical engineering. It's too late. Nobody
you have a B there if you need it.
Nobody wants me chemical engineering anything for them right now. I'm sorry. No.
I was in Altered Carbon. I know how to do this. I think we have time for one more question.
Hi.
Hey.
So now that you're deep in your career as an actor,
Yes.
is there like any particular roles that you're gravitating towards now that you played all these different characters?
Yeah, it's lucky. I just want to keep doing that same thing. Because it's not really the characters are obviously important, but my thing is also the group of people that I'm working with, and I've had so much luck with that that I just want to always be in a family. So when we did Altered Carbon, we were all friends. We were all endeavoring to make this massive piece of sci-fi theater, but we were all sort of in the same game, and nobody was trying to pull anybody else down. And I've heard horror stories all over the place. I've just never been part of it. So I just want to always be in something that is a bunch of people who are just artists and who love each other and who want to make something good.
You'll get the chance. Don't worry.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Ato, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Pleasure,
Congratulations
man.
on the
Yeah,
show.
appreciate
Altered
you.
Carbon is on Netflix
Yeah,
now.
thanks.
Everybody, Ato Essandoh, let's hear it.
Thank you very much. All right.